Well, the question is whether demands for curbs on social media are then justified. We have Shobha joining us from Mumbai as well on this, but I want to come to Jay Panda first because Jay, you've got a private member's bill on the issue of the IT Act, which you believe is draconian and needs to be modified. Now, here's the problem. You do have people who are misusing social media and genuinely creating trouble. And on the other hand, you do have governments misusing the IT Act as well and going after people for no relevant reason. Where do we find a meeting point?
We must first clarify a confusion or a conflation that many people genuinely make. One is that whether it is online on social media or whether it is outside on the streets, if you are stalking someone, if you are threatening someone with violence, that is unacceptable. Okay? And if you're doing it on social media, you ought to be locked up. But if you are expressing opinions, even if those opinions don't suit a lot of people, then you ought to have the rights of freedom of speech that our constitution guarantees. And this is the conflation that we must separate. Now, what is happening is, if somebody is trying to incite a religious riot, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on the streets, it ought to be treated with seriousness. But if I express political opinions and that is used by the authorities to harass you or to arrest you, that is a violation of fundamental rights guaranteed by our constitution. And section 66A of the IT Act is what enables this misuse by the authorities. My private member's bill had lapsed from the last parliament and I have refiled it today. That needs to be drastically amended.
How do you ensure that things that get onto Facebook or WhatsApp or Twitter don't go out of hand? It's so difficult to do that. And in this country, we've seen that people use that as a reason to stir trouble. So how do you do that?
Well, the freedom of expression in our constitution has been defined by many court orders, by the high courts and by the Supreme Courts. Now, as far as social media is concerned, it is just another medium. Now, if I threaten you right here on this TV channel, in this studio, I ought to be held accountable for it. So, the laws should apply irrespective of whether you are on social media or on television or on newspapers or out on the streets. If you are threatening violence, if you are stalking someone, if you are inciting some kind of a riot, that's different. Now, how you do it is all these social media organizations, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, they all have relevant means of redressing these. Of course, authorities have to monitor them and take redressal action. You can't be arresting people for posting opinions or likes.
Abhishek Singhvi, is that easier said than done in the sense that, when you talk of, when Jay Panda talks about monitoring, the authorities monitoring, now how much can you monitor? That is one part of the problem. The fact that on social media so many people are anonymous, that's another problem. And I also find that a lot of people complain that, even if you complain, there are certain complaints that are taken seriously, others that are not. You know how follow-up action is in this country if you went to the cops. What do we do about this? Because what we're seeing in Maharashtra is clearly something that has to be taken seriously.
Nidhi, the problem is much more complex. It is not at all capable of a simple solution. The first thing we have to do is to rise above politics. Secondly, there is no doubt that the offence is the same, whether it is committed in person, by print, by television or by social media. If I defame you by any of the means, the defamation is the same. If I do obscenity, it's the same. If I do abuse or incitement of religious feelings, it's the same. But there is a fundamental difference. While the substantive offence is the same, the nature of dissemination and the difficulty of policing or catching or identifying is different. And the spread and the reach is instantaneous in one case and much slower in the other. These peculiar features make it a very serious thing. Now, freedom of speech recognizes its limitations in our constitution itself in Article 19(2). Therefore, defamation is a known exception. Incitement to religious offences is a known exception. You have to, therefore, it's a question of policing, it's not a question of law. It's a question of policing. You have to, unfortunately, act very strictly and quickly when you have incitement, for example, I'm giving an example only, to religious animosity and division. Because one bad post, if I show somebody's God in a different wrongful manner, it leads to loss of several innocent lives, as has happened recently in Maharashtra. Complete bystanders, complete innocent people, bakery owners.
But is it okay if Maharashtra's Home Minister says to go after people who may press like
it's all over India.
on an allegedly offensive
no
post, or does that take it to the other extreme?
I am saying the nature is the same. Do not think that because you're a social media operator, your right to free speech is more. do not think that the offence can be less. It's only a question of policing. And unfortunately, the only way sometimes is to take action of arrest. Yes, because there is no other option. The consequences are very serious. Therefore, you have to agree with that part of it. No, very serious consequences.
But because Jay says there's a fundamental flaw with the law.
Yes, I agree with the principle, but the point is what the draconian powers that Section 66A gives to the authorities do not have that power if exactly the same comments are made offline. So that has to be amended, but otherwise I agree with the principle that if you are inciting violence, if you are stalking someone, wherever you do it, you ought to face the consequences.
So Shobha De, what then needs to change? Because Abhishek Singhvi says rightly that just because you're on social media, that shouldn't make you think that you don't come under the purview of the law of the land. That applies to you as well. But clearly there are things that are said and done on social media that is like an alternate universe. Because it is often a free-for-all where defamatory content is there, but what do people do about it under the garb of anonymity?
Two things that have to be specified. One, it is a very, very complex problem which cannot be resolved very easily, especially social media platforms, which are very, very hard to crack, very hard to catch the culprits in time before the violence actually sets in. Secondly, it's not exclusive to Maharashtra state alone. I mean, this is a problem that's going to be faced in every state of India. It's just that at the moment, Maharashtra seems to be a bit of a tinderbox, what with the elections around the corner, and therefore the fear that these kind of posts will escalate and people will misuse the interpretations of any and every post to incite violence, as we have in fact seen. Now, in the case of Maharashtra and particularly in Pune, we also must give credit to the people of Pune, the citizens of Pune, the Muslim community of Pune, as well as the Pune police for the kind of restraint that was shown post the absolutely horrific murder of the young techie, a completely innocent bystander. The fact is that the next time it may not be this passive, the reaction could be a lot worse. How does one monitor this? It's very, very hard. How much do you police? How little do you police? These are issues that confront not just people in India but across the world. So social media being what it is a beast. Most people there are anonymous beasts. How do you track them? Not even the best cyber cells in the world can possibly prevent something from happening. They cannot preempt something. So we have to think of ways in which to contain this menace.
No, but then it sounds like a pretty helpless situation right now, because we've talked about it in the past when Muzaffarnagar happened, when the Azad Maidan incident happened, when the violence in Assam happened.
And the Northeast students.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Britain had that problem when they had those riots that broke out. So, no, are we just sort of running around in circles on this? I mean, one of the things I remember, I'll ask Nalin this question. I remember
what we're looking at.
Yeah.
What we're looking at really is something that is done subsequently. It happens, it's post the event, it's post the violence having taken place. Now this is the terrible part about these platforms and how swiftly
you can't
can
predict
any
who's
cop
going to
in the
put
world
what
act,
up on any Facebook site,
and how swiftly can they be brought to justice.
No, you can't predict that. But I remember one of the panelists when we did this show a couple of years ago, Nalin said that end the anonymous IDs and the anonymous handles. Now, I don't know if that's even possible or whether that's even democratic to do, but that's one of the things that has been proposed.
There's a lot to it, and I think it's far more complex. I mean, what we've discussed so far, of course, each point is valid. But going a little beyond it, there are issues, there's issues of intolerance, and I think we are seeing a lot of it. There's issues of also living dual lives, multiple lives also. You're talking about anonymous, so people are building false IDs and they build a whole false profile and they live in that. It's a whole set of issues, and I think, there's no easy solution to it. At the larger question, it's really a social question. It's not just only about law enforcement. The misuse of law is one aspect of it, but even, Section 302, 306, these sections can be misused also. Rape is can be misused, so can dowry, so can even murder. So, the sections can be misused also. So, I don't think that itself is a solution only about looking at it from the legal perspective. You can't even overburden a structure. We don't have enough policemen to even patrol streets of many cities in that sense, and now we're talking of the social media. So, I think what it really goes back to is basically education. And at the base of it is when you're in society, you understand that the right to free speech cannot be the right to take it to an extent of, offense, intrusion, all of this. And this is, I think, a self-built mechanism. It's a long haul. So while you will work on the legal framework, you will work on tightening it, catching the aberrations. You will deal with also the morphed pictures and the morphed sites, which create a whole set of panic. All of that the law enforcement agencies will do. I think at the larger extent, we need to be working on all the other issues too.
Okay, but Kumar Ketkar, Maharashtra's Home Minister today said this is being deliberately done to create tension in the states, in the state of Maharashtra, and that they've identified those who've been, circulating some of these images. Now, here's the problem. There obviously are groups out there that would then use these platforms to deliberately sort of, whip up a frenzy. Do you really believe that that is what is being done in Maharashtra before the elections? I mean, which political group would really benefit from that?
Well, actually, you must have noticed that it is not happening in Kerala, it is not happening in Tamil Nadu, it is not happening even in Karnataka. It has been happening in Maharashtra for quite a few years, almost 3-4 years. But the point is that there are some wicked, pervert groups, individuals, who are putting this on Facebook or WhatsApp. But they are not the people who go and start stoning or arsoning or looting in public, on the street. So there are these two groups. One is the pervert group, maybe of 10 or 12 people or 6 or 7 people. But the second group, which uses that particular Facebook or WhatsApp to create riotous situation, to create communal tension, they are different. So that is a second group. And the third group is only, intolerant Indians who, depending on who is under attack, they defend. Like Hindu Rashtra Sena might, or some of the radical Hindutva or this might defend, okay, what this happened because of that. Somebody might anti-Dalit or pro-Dalit will also argue that, okay, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, theek hai, ye ho gaya. So actually there are these three groups. One group is the people who are pervert and putting on Facebook. Second is those who are rioting, and third is who are intolerant Indians. This is happening primarily because there is a huge social disconnect, and that socialization, that communitarization has disappeared, and that's why in that vacuum all this is happening. So I think what is required is that, there were earlier social movements, trade union movements, social organizations, cultural organizations, educational organizations, all that is slowly disappearing under the, invasion of this kind of personal technology. So I think it is, that's what I'm saying. Therefore police,
because
police,
what you and Nalin
I'm saying
say
same
is essentially
thing.
the same thing.
No, but Nidhi, I'm saying the same thing, that you perhaps may not be able to arrest and apprehend all those people who are perverts and working on Facebook. But you can definitely stop the riotous situations. And everybody doesn't go. 99.999% people are not going for riots. So the antisocial elements who use every single opportunity to block roads and create burns and riots. So I think they can be definitely controlled by law and order machinery, even if you can't apprehend and arrest the people who are on the Facebook.